Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel that takes you deep inside the San Francisco 49ers. I am your host, Jack Hammer. The 49ers continue to make moves as they get ready for week 1 against the Pittsburgh Steelers, kicking off tomorrow out in Pittsburgh at Acrisure Stadium. The 49ers have been making a bunch of moves in terms of salary cap space and all that. We're going to discuss that in a minute. We're also going to discuss Nick Bosa's full contract details. Those became available to us today. We'll get into that in a second. But before we get there, the 49ers making moves to their roster for tomorrow's game. The first one that we know of is kicker Jake Moody. Jake Moody will be kicking for the 49ers, the third-round draft pick, taking number 99 overall. Every 49ers fan's favorite draft pick from this draft. He will be able to kick for the 49ers. There had been some question about that as he was dealing with a quad strain. He is all good, and the reason that we know that he's going to be kicking tomorrow is because the 49ers released kicker Matthew Wright from their practice squad. That's right, Matthew Wright has been released from the practice squad. He is no longer with the team. Jake Moody will be kicking for your San Francisco 49ers tomorrow against the Pittsburgh Steelers. In other moves today, the 49ers brought back defensive end Austin Bryant. Austin Bryant was actually on the original 53-man roster of the 49ers after that first cuts. They have since released him. Well, they decided to bring him back today. Austin Bryant added to the practice squad in San Francisco, replacing Matthew Wright. Not only did they bring Austin Bryant back, they've elevated him to the 53-man roster for tomorrow. So that means that Austin Bryant will be one of the players who could possibly be active on that 46-man roster. We'll see how that all plays out tomorrow. We'll know for sure around 8:30 in the morning, about 90 minutes before game time. That is when those become official. So we'll find out there. But Austin Bryant added to the practice squad and elevated to the active roster for tomorrow's game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. In addition to Austin Bryant, the 49ers have also elevated linebacker Curtis Robinson from the practice squad to the active roster for this game. Both of these are standard elevations, not being added to the active roster for beyond tomorrow. So these are the standard elevations for tomorrow's game. And it makes sense, especially with Curtis Robinson. I can see this one because Curtis Robinson is really good on special teams. I can see them wanting to get him out and involved in their special teams coverage and kicking units, those types of things. So it makes a lot of sense adding Curtis Robinson to the roster tomorrow. We'll see about what happens with Austin Bryant, how that fits in. The 49ers may want him to be active because that might be a sign that Nick Bosa is not going to be playing the full game. They want to make sure that they have a full complement of edge rushers for that game tomorrow. Make sure that they have more than just 3 if Bosa has to miss any time in the game tomorrow if he's not a full go. So those are the moves. Again, Jake Moody going to be kicking tomorrow. Austin Bryant added to the practice squad, elevated to the active roster for tomorrow's game. Curtis Robinson elevated off the practice squad as well for tomorrow. So all those are your moves right now. Now, in terms of Nick Bosa, his full contract deals became available. They are very interesting. They're a little bit different than I thought. You know, one of the things I felt like that there was a possibility the firms were going to try to front load this deal, try to get a lot of it up front, get it out of the way so they don't have to worry about it. Well, they did the opposite. They backloaded this deal like they do with most of them. If you look at Nick Bosa's contract, what they've done in the first 3 years of this deal, this season, 2024 and 2025, he is going to be paid the minimum base salary that you can get in the NFL. So the majority of his salary cap hit over these first 3 seasons of the contract are going to be based off of his signing bonus, which was $50 million. That's spread out over 5 years. Next year, there's an option bonus that's going to hit. That option bonus also getting spread out over 5 years. So that's a lot of the guaranteed money there, along with the base salaries and those types of things. His base salary for 2026 is where it gets interesting. So if you look at the 49ers, the way that this is structured, in 2023, Nick Bosa this year, his salary cap hit was supposed to be $17.85 million. That was the 50-year option cap number that Nick Bosa was going to carry. Well, because of this restructuring, his cap hit actually goes down. So Nick Bosa's salary cap hit goes from $17.85 million down to $11.01 million. So what that means is right now the San Francisco 49ers have $41.5 million in salary cap space to work with. That $41.5 million, the most of any team in the NFL, and that's really remarkable when you consider the 49ers have one of the best rosters in the NFL, And they have several of the top paid players in the NFL as well. Maybe not the number one guy, but in the top 10 in their positions. Several of their players are in that position. Yet the 49ers, when it comes to the salary cap this season, have the most space. I think we're going to see a lot of that cap get rolled over. Some of it will be used as the season goes through. We'll see what they're going to do with that $41.5 million. I spoke about that earlier. If you want to get a full idea of what could happen there, check that out. That's on the channel as well, as far as the restructures and what the Flyers are going to do next. But when you look at Nick Bosa, this season, his salary cap hit in 2023, $11.01 million. Next year in 2024, it goes up just slightly to $14.671 million. That increase comes partly because of the option bonus getting paid out, plus his salary, base salary, has to escalate a little bit because the veteran minimum salary will be escalating. It escalates every year. Then you look at 2025, again, the vet's minimum salary for Nick Bosa, he has all those same bonuses and things like that. He will be at $20.519 million in 2025. So you look at Nick Bosa, over these first 3 years of this contract, the NFL's reigning defensive player of the year will cost the San Francisco 49ers just $46.2 million against the cap over the next 3 years. That's a great deal for the San Francisco 49ers. And then you look beyond that, you're saying, hey, Jack, what are you talking about? That can't be a great deal for the Flyers because it's a salary cap. You always got to kind of, at some point, you need to pay it. You do. But the 49ers, remember, right now, Nick Bosa is only going to be 31 years old when this contract expires. And we'll see where he is even at that point, depending on his production. They may be able to extend him at that point. We'll see. But the other thing to think about is you look at these cap hits in 2026. That's where his cap hit balloons. It goes from $20 million in 2025 up to $42.029 million in 2026. The main reason that Nick Bosa's cap hit jumps up so much in 2026 is because that's when they really build in his base salary. So all that money that they're saving in years 1, 2, 3, then some of that has to be kicked into 2026. This is what the 49ers do with all of these types of deals, because that means with his base salary being $22.658 million in 2026, the 49ers are going to have about $24.5 million that they can play with and restructure, that they can add into other areas in terms of maybe void years, all these different types of things that they can do to free up cap space at that point. So just kind of looking at it and looking at Nick Bosa and his production, if I was a betting man, I would say that in 2026, when his salary cap number is supposed to be $42.029 million, he's not going to play at that number. Nick Bosa will see a restructuring of his contract before that time, and it'll be lowered again. The Flyers are doing a really good job of managing their cap, massaging the numbers. And remember, the biggest thing about this is they're doing it with the guys that are productive. They're doing it with the guys that are actually doing a good job for the team. They're not having to move numbers around for guys that are on their way out the door. These are guys that they expect to be around for a couple of years to come, at least. In Nick Bosa's case, you're looking at it, this season plus 5 more. So makes a lot of sense for the 49ers. They're able to keep their salary structure in place. Right now, this frees up, if they don't use this money to have to sign other players, it means that the 49ers will go into next season with all that $41 million being able to be rolled over, puts them in a good spot to re-sign Brandon Ayuk, work on some of their other rookie deals that they need to turn over. Talanoa Hufanga is going to be one of those that's going to be coming up pretty soon. So they're in a good spot to be able to get these deals done. Talanoa Hufanga is really one to keep an eye on too, because this is his 3rd year. He's going into his 4th, will be next season. He's not going to have a 5th-year option because he wasn't a first-round pick. So Talanoa Hufanga is another player that the Flyers are going to have to spend money on if they want to keep him around as well. And I think they're going to want to do that because they don't have anyone to replace him on the roster. So there you have it. Nick Bosa, his salary cap details, $46.2 million over the next 3 seasons. That's a great deal. That is just over $15 million a year for Nick Bosa, the NFL's defensive player of the year with your San Francisco 49ers. Again, San Francisco kicking off their 2023 season tomorrow at 10 a.m. out in Pittsburgh against the Steelers, elevating from their practice squad Austin Bryant and linebacker Curtis Robinson. Keep it locked in here for all of your breaking forward news and updates right here on Inside the Flyers with Jack Hammer. We'll We'll be back on tomorrow morning at 8:30 as well for our pregame show. So about 8:45 we'll be going live. 8:30 the 90-man, final 46-man roster, the active roster for tomorrow's game will be announced. We'll make sure that we get that under control, and then we'll come on. We'll do a pregame show. We'll get you all lined up and ready to go for kickoff of the 2023 season for the Friars out in Pittsburgh against the Steelers. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Hey, take it for what it's worth. 49ers fans, if you could do me a favor before you leave, smash that like button for me. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And then last but not least, go ahead and turn your notifications on, because you never know when news is going to break with the Friars, and you don't want to miss it right here on Inside the Friars with Jack Hammer. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be talking with you soon.